Everyone, welcome back. In this video I'm going to show how to create a bucket, a AWS bucket. First you log in your account and we go to the service, and usually the buckets when you use often it shows in your home page, but if you don't use often, then you're going to find in the storage, and there is the S3. We click it and we go to the page that is connected with a bucket. As you can see, I have already created one bucket, and it is empty actually. It's just created recently just to show how the things work. I'm gonna make a very simple bucket, a general purpose, just to create the idea how it works. First, we have to create buckets, and we click in the option create buckets. We choose the regions, and since we live in Oregon, we choose Oregon. It's very recommended to choose the region that is near to your area that you live, so you don't have any delay. And I use a general purpose bucket. Here actually the bucket names has to be very specific, since it has to be globally specific, so not only to choose a name that is different from the other buckets that you have choose, but it has to be even something very specific even from the buckets that the other has created. There is here some rules how to create a bucket name if you want to find some clues and some kind of information. And let's try it. Test AWS tutorials. Here is an option to choose a bucket that you can copy paste if you don't want to create all the configuration. I leave all the default configuration since I'm gonna create just a simple bucket. Here is to block all the public access if you want your bucket to be private. If you want to be public, then you unclick it, and when you click, you choose which one of these kind to be more specific how the public access should be. You go through the list and you check and you block the one, or you leave the one that you feel that is not appropriate for the configuration that you want your bucket to have. Since I'm going to create a private bucket, I just block all for all the public access. And I go further and I leave all these options here. I leave default. So since I'm not going to use for other reasons, it's mostly a very simple or a very standard storage bucket. So I created. After I created, it shows here in my screen two of my buckets that I have already created. It says that the bucket and the objects are not public. It says the region and the time when it's created. If you click your bucket, then you have an option to delete or to do further operations. We open, let's go to our bucket. We open the clickable link, and here we are inside the bucket. Here we have some more options that we can do with our bucket. Here is the property, here is permissions, and some kind of information that you can get through these options to understand the configuration that you have already done to the bucket. And if you want to change certain things, you can go and change a certain configuration of your bucket that you have already created. Let's try to upload a document in the bucket. Here we have an option to add a file or a folder, and I'm gonna add a file, and let's go to this, a Word file, and here is the destination. That is the specific name of our bucket, and we upload it. So the document is uploaded in our bucket, and if we go back, let's go back to the bucket, and we go to the we see that we have already a document that shows the type of the document that we have already, these are called objects that we have already installed inside the bucket. And if we click it, we have the option to download it, to delete it, to create a folder. And since this bucket is private and is specified since in the moment that we have created the buckets, that not only the bucket but everything that is inside the bucket can included the objects, as we can call the things that they are stored inside the bucket, they should not be private. So if we copy the URL and we try, we're going to see that we cannot access it because we didn't give permissions to this bucket to be accessible in the public. So we cannot, even though it has an URL, we cannot access it. In the case that, for example, you want information or an object of the bucket to be shared, but you don't want this object to be in public, but you want just to share with a friend of yours or with other colleagues that they are working in the same project, there is an option here that you can share a presigned URL. What means with this is that you give a certain moment or minutes or hours of this object to be shared in public. So you can share the pre-designed, you can share this URL that's going to give with your friends or your colleagues, and they can be able to access and to download, or depends on what kind of documents you have been saving in that bucket. So let's say that this bucket is going to be available for 30 minutes. So it's going to create a pre-signed URL, and we can copy this pre-signed URL, and it's going to be available for 30 minutes, and we access it. And as you can see now, the document is accessible and is available to be downloaded by your friend or by your colleague that you want to share. So this is another way how you can make a very private buckets or objects that they are private accessible for a very short period of time, and after 30 minutes you don't have to worry that the URL is already shared, because after 30 minutes, or depends on the time that you have already configured when you have created your pre-signed URL, it's going to be expired and not available anymore. Also, it's the option here you have to click. If you don't click, they are not possible to access, and there is an option to download it. So here is the possibility for you to download and to delete as well, and to create folders. So these are all the options that gives you the possibility to manage your buckets through your console. We go back to the buckets, and we see that we have 2 buckets created already, and you can delete the buckets. But for example, we try to delete. First we have to empty the bucket and then to delete the bucket. If something is saved in your bucket, it's not going to be deleted, because it's going to give an information that your bucket is not empty, so you cannot delete it. First you have to delete what is inside your bucket, and then to delete the bucket. This is just to make sure that you are not losing the information. Also, you can manage your account even through the AWS CLI that you have already installed in your terminal. Before you start any kind of command, you just make sure that is already installed. And as you can see, AWS CLI is already installed in my Windows, and I can list my bucket that is in my account. So as you can see, when I create AWS is the name of the command, the name of the cloud provider, S3 is the name of the service, and ls is the subcommand that is created to list the services that they're created in the services that they are created. And as you can see, after I run this command, it shows in my terminal that I have already created two buckets, and it gives even the time and the moment when they are created, two buckets that are in my account, and it gives the name of the buckets that they are exactly the same as the one that they are showed here. So there are more interactions or more comments that you can do through the AWS CLI, that you can create, you can change, or you can copy different buckets from your from your account, and everything that you are able to do in your console, you can do even through the terminal. There are some tutorials that they are shared in AWS that gives even information how to build an AWS command, and also gives even specific commands how to run different for different purpose that you might need. I create it, and gives more options here, like rename the object and also copy the object, download as, move. So if you have a copy, it means that you can copy this file, and you can, let's try this, you can copy this document and you can paste to another bucket. Let's copy these. Choose a destination. Let's go to this bucket here. So I'm gonna copy this file from my bucket to this destination bucket. So configuring and copy. So we successfully copy. We go back to the buckets, and we see that's what was my first bucket that I have already uploaded. And we go back and we see that we have already copied our document from one bucket to another. So there are some other options that you can do through the object of your buckets that allows you can rename them, you can create query, if depends on what kind of object you have already saved in your bucket. And there are some more advanced things that you can do in your bucket. So we try to delete it. As I said before, if you try to delete it, it's going to show here that you have a trouble, because you cannot delete a bucket that is not empty. So we can go here, and first we delete the object, then go to delete, and it requires you, and then delete. It's like a confirmation just to make sure that you really want to delete this. And we go and we try to delete it. As you can see now, doesn't show an error to delete. It just shows a warning that you are deleting a bucket and cannot be done. So it requires the name of your bucket just to be sure that you really want to delete it. And here we are, the bucket is finished, is deleted, so it doesn't show anymore. And even if you run the command here, you're going to see that it doesn't show. It is already deleted from our account, and it shows only one bucket that is already active in my system. So these are a few basic operations that you can do with a general purpose bucket that is in your AWS. Of course, there are even more situations that are in more advanced projects that they use buckets and they use for different reasons, and is a very important service that the AWS offers.